Time is 7 p.m. And we are starting the meeting. April 16, 2025. Okay, David, can you help with the roll call?
Chair Ganga,
Yes.
Vice Chair Eshlet,
Yeah.
Commissioner Matipatla,
Yes.
Commissioner Marcy,
Here.
Commissioner Wolf,
Yes.
have a quorum.
Thank you, David. So with that, the first item is the approval of minutes. Do we have any questions or comments on the minutes? Okay, if none, can I have approve the minutes?
I move to approve the meeting minutes from March. They are.
Do I have a second?
Second that.
Okay.
I'll take the vote as soon as we get it on the screen.
That's right. I'm just waiting for Prashant to get it up on the screen. Yeah.
This is the meeting following the previous double side.
Some.
There's still a learning curve here.
Okay.
Jim did it so wonderfully and seamlessly, so Prashant will
Kim's not here
no, Kim is no longer with the city, so.
She's left.
Yes, she took another position.
Oh.
So, yeah, so we've got Prashant sitting in to help out with managing the Zoom and the audio visual, and ultimately will be replacing Kim.
There we go. Vice Chair Silver. Propose the motion to approve the minutes. And Commissioner Wolf seconded. David, you can put the roll call as soon as you. You have it. on the
So,
screen.
yeah, so I'll proceed with the vote. So for the approval of the March 2025 minutes, how do you vote, Chair Ganga?
Yes.
Vice Chair Eshlet,
Yes.
Commissioner Matipatla,
Yes.
Commissioner Marcy, Commissioner Wolf,
Yes.
motion passes 5-0.
Thank you. All right, so do we have any postponements, David?
No postponement.
Now let's move on to the oral communication. This is for the public to speak on items that are not on the agenda. And you have 3 minutes each to make your comments. And do we have any public speakers on the oral communication?
I don't see any. Okay.
All right. Thank you. Then move on to the next item, which is no, we don't. We call in person. Yeah. Written communications. David, do we have any written communications?
No, we don't.
All right. So with that, let's move on to the new business, which is the capital improvements project, fiscal year 2025 and 26, and the 5-year plan. And Scott will make the presentation.
Good evening, Commissioners. My name is Susan Michael. I'm the CIP manager for the city of Cupertino, and I'm here to share with you the fiscal year 25-26 CIP program and the 5-year plan. So the action tonight is simply to receive the presentation and provide input if so desired. There's no absolute reason to take a vote, but if you'd like to show support to council, that we'll take that back to council. In any case, if there are comments, we will, especially as a commission, if there are comments, we'll take that back to council. But really, we're just here to give you an update on the CIP. And I wanted to point out that when the city relaunched our website, we did improve the CIP webpage. There's more information here. We've got the CIP books that we usually have, the dashboard, the CIP dashboard that shows the active projects. The last tab is other resources, and we've put links to everything. More projects that are actually transportation projects. We've got the bike and ped transportation plans linked there, the Parks and Rec system master plan, et cetera, linked there. So it's a resource for you. So tonight's agenda is, I'm going to try to make it brief because I think you've got a lot of business tonight. I'll go through really quickly what the achievements of the last year for the CIP were, the existing CIP status. Then we'll show you the proposed CIP for next year and the 5-year plan, and then talk a little bit about next steps. So we completed a few projects in the last fiscal year. One of them was McClellan Road Bikeways Phase 3, which is the work at McClellan De Anza Pacifica intersection. That was a big deal. And actually, Matt put together a really cool before and after that's linked on the transportation page as well. We did repair on the Vi Avenue storm drain. It's still an active project because I'd like to do the replacement of this outfall, which is the outfall is the last part of the storm drain. And so that's one of the kind of achievements of the year. We also completed the restriping of De Anza to create the buffered bike lanes. And we completed work at Blackberry Farm pools where we needed to replaster the pools, but we also had to do a number of accessibility upgrades to the facility. And one project that's nearly complete hopefully will be done by the end of the fiscal year, is the all-inclusive playground at Jollyman Park. It's looking pretty great. Right now, the grand opening is scheduled for June 10th, so mark your calendars. So the existing CIP projects, we have 28 projects. There are 9 transportation projects. I remember where my mouse is. There it is. So these blue ones are transportation. 3 of the 9 are King Street Boulevard. We've got basically phase 2A, phase 2B, and then there's developer in lieu fees for some work at Bandley intersection of De Anza around Steuben Street and Bandley. So you have to track those as 3 separate projects. Just so you know, Stevens Creek Boulevard Bikeways Phase 2A. We've entered into a contract with a contractor and we're going through procurement right now. 3 of them are also the Tomyaninu, the trail, the east, west, and central, and the east we're in design right now, trying to get that through with Valley Water. The other projects, got the original, the first step of the Bollinger Road study, which is the traffic analysis that we were trying to get that started. Got the high friction pavement project that we're also trying to get some engineering done. We've procured the engineers. And the school walk audit project implementation of the things that were noted in the report. We've got a couple of projects that are meant to start in the fall. And these things are actually detailed in the report that was part of the package for tonight. So there's a lot more detail in there. There's also more detail about where we're going for the next 5 years. And if we were asked to also consider funding any of the existing projects. So we put that as much information as we could into that report. So it's in tables and it's also in a bit of a narrative form if you want to look at that. And mouse again. So. So what is proposed for fiscal year 25-26 and the 5-year plan? I wanted to note that how we prioritize CIP projects. CIP projects are capital improvements to the city's assets. So basically, if something needs to be repaired, maintained, the way we prioritize the projects, the first projects that we consider are projects that are necessary to protect public safety. We also look at council, commission, and community priorities. We look at the master plans that have been generated and see what projects are noted in there to keep in mind the direction that was given. Subsequent phases of existing projects, like Stevens Creek Boulevard, bike lane, did phase 1, this is phase 2. And we're trying to be fiscally responsible. So what is available for the resources that we have, including staff. So, we have 3 projects for fiscal year 25-26. One of them is new, and this is the new project. Basically and this is all comes back to health and safety. When the Stevens Creek Boulevard, Calabasas Creek, storm drain failed, was going to fail, we had to do an emergency repair to that. And we also had the Via Avenue storm drain, outfall issue. Both of those came to light. Public Works decided that we need to do a survey of all of our outfalls. We did a report, and the report showed that 51 outfalls need repair, and these are major. So we're requesting council to fund $950,000 to replace the first 3, and we're going to follow up with requests for more repairs to those outfalls in the coming years. And the additional funding we're requesting are we annually request money for the ADA accessibility upgrades. So there's $110,000 there. And our facilities condition assessment report, basically in 2018 and 2022, we updated the report. This report looked at all our facilities and noted the deficiencies and things that needed to be repaired immediately. And so we're still working on that. So that is the bulk of our request this year. This is the summary table showing that we're requesting $2 million worth of projects. And this is, this reflects also the budget that the city determined CIP would basically work towards every year for the next couple foreseeable future. $2 million is what's available to us. And that's $2 million more than we had for the past 3 years. So that's a step in the right direction, but it's still, it's not major. So the 5-year plan, we'll continue to ask for funding for the ADA upgrades in order to meet our federal and state requirements to keep our facilities accessible. The facilities condition assessment projects, we're replacing 3 roofs and 5 fire alarm systems with the money we're requesting this year. And the next year, you'll see it's a little bit higher than 2 million. The library needs a new fire alarm system, and that's gonna probably be $1.5 million in itself. So we're trying to plan ahead for this. The outfalls repairs also, we can continue to ask for money for that. And the bulk, we identified a year or 2 ago that we need to replace the irrigation at the golf course. We're putting that in year 4 just because we're trying to once again manage staff and financial resources. What's not on here, because it's more like year 6, is the Bollinger Road work. So the study's being done now, or will be done now. And with the public outreach and all that's required, we think that we'll be ready to consider design and construction in 5 years. So it would be fiscal year 31. So it's on the horizon, it's just not in the 5 years right here. There's more information about the 5-year plan, projects that have been mentioned in the past as related to bike and ped and other transportation issues in that report. So we're definitely keeping all these things on the radar. The other thing that's worth mentioning is the active transportation plan is in development, and that will generate projects. So that will become part of the 5-year plan as those projects are identified. And next steps. We're going to all the commissions just to give everybody an update on the projects, and I have to go to planning commission on Tuesday to check that the project that we're proposing, the one new project performance with the general plan. We're going back to the city council because the city council would like us to review projects to be defunded. They'd like more input on that. So they've asked for a short list of projects to consider defunding, and we'll talk about that on May 6th. And then from there, as far as unless there's more input from council, the CIP will just become part of the budget process that happens in May and June to get the annual budget. That is it. I'm available if you have any questions.
Thank you. Yeah, do we have any clarifying questions? First, we'll go through clarifying questions and then come back for a discussion. Yes.
Yes, I'm sorry, I just want to make sure I understood correctly. You mentioned for the library fire alarm, is it $5 million?
The fire alarm systems?
Yes.
No, we have part of the facilities condition assessment implementation report project. The report basically identified probably $50 million worth of work that needs to happen to our facilities.
50 like 50?
50. It's a huge amount. I can't remember if that's exactly right, but it's just a big number. And we're trying to attack the first priority projects. Fire alarm systems at a number of our facilities are out of date. So we're doing one right now at the senior center, and I'm hoping that will set the template, and we plan to do 5 more in the coming year. There's smaller facilities like the Creekside Park building, one of them, Monte Vista buildings. Smaller, but 5 of them adds up, right?
Thank you. Next, we'll go counterclockwise, Commissioner Navid Martin.
Yeah, so I'm just looking for that slide.
Do you want to put something on the screen?
Yeah, so. Understand, like, citywide facilities conditions, so FCA assessment implementation for $940,000. That's almost half of what we are asking.
Yes.
So can you give me some examples of what we do there?
So if you look at the council report, I didn't put as much detail into the package for this commission. But if you wish to go back to the previous council meeting where CIP was that measured, which meeting was that? I could share it with you.
I'm just curious,
So I put a lot of detail into the attachments to that information. For the $940,000 that we're asking for, it covers 3 roofs. So we're replacing flat roofs at 3 facilities.
Okay.
Sports center. There's a flat roof at the senior center, and there's a flat roof here at Quinlan. So both Quinlan and senior center have a 40 tile roof. There's a flat section that has all the equipment in it. So those 3 roofs need to be replaced. The sports center apparently is in particularly bad shape. And then the other bit of that money is 5 fire alarm systems.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dwight. Vice Chair Silva.
I was wondering, I was looking through this existing CIP project list here, which is listed in one of the slides here. And it lists kind of a whole range of different projects. Existing CIP projects, does that mean they are approved, funded, or what does that actually mean? Because they don't show up anywhere back in the fiscal year 25, 26, or in the 5-year plan. So I'm just wondering how to read that.
These are already funded.
So the existing CIP projects are funded, and this is incremental funding.
These are the projects that are funded in whole, and then the new projects. We're asking for additional funding, so
I
there's
see.
1 new project and 2 projects that require
Yeah.
additional funding.
Mhm.
The way the CIP projects typically work is that we have, the project is funded until the project is complete. So each year the funds roll over. So if we don't spend all the money in the first year, it just rolls over.
Right.
Yeah.
For clarity, you'll see like the city hall improvements, that's not fully funded, that is a small portion of funding for investigative work. So that's fine.
Right.
I see. Yeah. Great, thank you.
Sure.
Commissioner Wolf?
So I have a question regarding the, I guess you could say on the proposed fiscal year 25, 26 5-year plan projects, the ADA improvements could conceivably be, I mean, that could be a bike ped item, but I don't, is the reason we're not seeing any future projects for the next 5 years that are really related to, bike ped commission and transportation? Bike ped projects, is that because of funding, the fact that we don't?
That's part of it. We are trying to stay within our needs. This year in particular is a back to basics. We've been putting a lot of money into new facilities like Stevens Creek Boulevard bikeways, and the Jollywood Park, playground. Our infrastructure needs work. Some of our facilities need work. We're trying to catch up. And so with our limited funding, we're applying it to those health and safety projects. Now, what will be coming in the future, we're still trying to stay within our means, trying to stay around the 2 million, even for the years that are over 2 million. We'll have to find either additional outside sources of funding or ask council if there's another place the budget can come from. On the one hand, we're trying to stay fiscally responsible because we also acknowledge that we're doing our best to avoid a structural deficit of our budget in the coming years. And also trying to manage our resources. I think it's worth noting that we don't have transportation projects on the 5-year plan. Once that active transportation plan is completed, that will generate projects for our consideration. I think that's gonna be a game changer.
Yeah, I have a question on. You have item number 920, which is like a Bollinger Road corridor study. In the list of existing CIP projects, but then also I believe that on the defunded projects in your report, you also had the project listed over there, if I'm not mistaken, right?
On the defunded? No, the projects that we, when we went through that list, when I developed the report. One of the things that we were trying to address was, preempting council's question, should we be defunding any projects? So we actually considered each project and noted whether or not staff thinks that the project should be defunded. Is there a benefit to the city or not? Bollinger is not a project that we recommended defunding. In fact, staff does not recommend defunding any of the current existing projects. And they all have different reasons for not. Again, some of them are already halfway done. Jollyman, why would we defund it? It's gonna be done in a month. And everything has its reason. Bollinger is in the kind of current projects versus the future projects. It's 2 different projects. The current project is a grant funded study. And then down the road, there would be a project, a design and construction project that would in all probability come out of that study, that traffic study. The initial study that was done in 2017, 2019, I think it was. The results are on the website. Now we're doing an updated traffic analysis. And it's reasonable to believe that 5 years from now, 6 years from now, we'll be ready to do design and construction of Bollinger. That design and construction is not funded yet.
Okay, so that's what is the other list, as well, the construction part of it.
That's down the road. There's no funding put towards that yet to defund.
Okay, sounds
Yeah.
good. So with that, let's, any more
I
clarifications?
have a clarifying question. The projects that you mentioned here, they are funded by whom? Like the city that set aside funds for this project or? And the question where I'm coming from is
It's a
that,
mix. If you look at the last pages of the report, there's a table. And I could put it on the screen, but it has. Did I put it in there? Maybe I didn't put it in the report. Sorry,
It's in the
It's in the
report, the
council.
report contains some of the information.
sorry.
Your report that you attached to the invitation contains that.
Right, that each of the projects lists that whether it's got only city funds or external funds. Yeah, so it's a mixed bag. Yeah. If you have specific questions, David or I could probably get to your questions about where funding comes from.
So on the, yeah, so on the Stevens Creek Boulevard bikeway list that I see here. So can you talk about the funding sources for those? Like how much of each, like 17 through like 19? Like how much each one of them costs? Where is the money coming from?
So, there was originally for the Stevens Creek Boulevard Bikeway Phase 2 design was $350,000. And then a couple of years ago, council approved spending $2 million on Phase 2 construction.
That's 2 years ago.
Yes,
And $2 million of taxpayer dollars are,
Yes.
okay, that's
however,
our money, okay.
since then, we've received, I believe, about $1.5 million in outside grant funding. So that will definitely pay for most of Phase 2A.
Phase 2A, so 1.5 million outside funding and half $500,000 of our dollars
2 million.
out of 2 million.
Yes, so at this point, there's basically, we've completed design of 2A.
Yeah.
We're in construction of, we're 98% complete design for 2B. So in all practicality, the $350,000 original investment is spent on the design services. And I can't remember the amount of the construction for 2A, it's not over 2 million, I don't. But we believe we'll be pretty close to underspending money that was originally allocated. And it will be, the 1.5 is gonna cut it way down. Am I saying all that?
I think there's,
Let's show this.
if you have the report, right, you can share the report, it's there in the report.
You sure?
So let me keep on asking, right? So, I understand,
On the screen.
There's a table in the.
Yeah.
so,
Yeah. Yeah. And then you can see actually below, family has some outside funds, developer in lieu fees. About $25,000 of city funds were,
We go up, actually, there's the previous page. Yeah, thank you.
so this is 2A, yeah, thank you. 2A approved funding. The one is 673, and that go back, so that 807K and 693, that's outside funding, I guess.
yes,
And that takes away from the 2 million from the
That
city or?
is that takeaway?
yes, so if you can see the 2.35 million.
Yeah.
If you added all these up, it'd be more than 2.35 million. We're not spending more than that.
Right, so,
This is going
Offset.
to offset the $2 million.
okay, so it offsets, so the net cost to city is roughly 830K, 800,
Yes, depending,
850K.
I don't have the construction
Okay.
contract amount in front of me to know where our,
Okay, so that's 2A. What about 2B? Do you have a similar table for
the
that?
only thing that we've invested right now in 2B is the design.
How much is that?
It's part of the 350, so there's,
Oh, it's already.
so the
included there,
plan
so
for
nothing.
2B was any of the funds that are left over. We can apply that towards the construction of 2B if council.
And
allows
2B, we will seek new approval for
Sorry.
funding for that. 2B, construction, funding is not approved yet, is that correct?
Not additional funding. Presently, the 2 million was approved for Phase 2. And that included 2A and B. So one thing that might happen for 2B is we might receive more outside funding,
Okay,
but we aren't there yet. We're putting our efforts into 2A right now.
so that means, whatever is not spent in 2A is going to be spent here, right? So $2 million that city approved. Like city approved total of $2.35 million, right? In that 1.5, we got outside funding, right? So the rest is city's tax dollar spending.
Yes,
So that $1.5 million technically is available for 2B,
yes. Well, no. The 1.5 is only available for 2A.
2A.
Yes.
So
The savings, the one.
savings from there
Need to go back to city council to have them reappropriate.
Reapprove.
dollars
Okay.
to be-
for 2B.
We
Okay,
won't
so
be able to-
I want to understand that process. Okay.
Any substantial contract, we have to go to council for approval. Yeah,
Because the reason I'm asking is a couple of things. So one, 2 years ago, when we approved all this funding, our situation is very different, right? Like, the tax revenue and, the budget situation was very different.
yes.
But the reality now is very different. You were talking about, need for, defunding some of the projects and, savings and all that stuff. Right? So, and the other issue that I brought up in the last meeting is, yes, we are doing all these, class 4 bike lanes, but we don't have data from the ones that we already did. So I don't want us to kind of, go down that path of, keep building without, data to support, yes, this is benefiting. Right.
So I think what we can do is like, we can finish the clarifying questions and come back to this during the
Yes.
discussion.
Yeah, okay, thank you. Yeah.
Any other clarifying questions? Yeah, so if none,
I have one question. Bamley doesn't show up on that table that you. But it doesn't show up in the color coded table you showed.
It's number 19.
Oh, it is.
Yeah. When
Family.
they don't, the plan is to do family at the same time we do phase 2B. But we have to show it separately because it's got a developer and lieu fees. We have to always show it separately. To counting more than anything else, but
Could Bamley be done before 2B or?
not sure, I don't know the detail of it.
It could, but just in terms of efficiency, it makes sense to do it as a comprehensive project. Originally, the idea was to do it as a standalone project before the 2A to B project kicked off, as sort of separate safety project for the intersection. But since 2A approved, we felt it makes sense to wrap that project into 2B so that it's done at the same time as it.
The only reason I bring it up is I don't know what improvements they have, but I've crossed that many times and probably it's one of the locations where I've nearly been struck as a pedestrian.
Well, that's
Probably why I think the sooner you get that done, the better.
That's what the improvement is meant to address. So what it'll do is, right now, the green on Bandley and the green on coming out of the shopping area across the street at the same time, and so the left turns conflict with the pedestrian lanes.
Okay.
So it separates those phases so that the pedestrians don't conflict with the left turn.
okay, so I have one last question. You mentioned that council is expecting a recommendation from us from the commissions for defunding projects, right? So do you have a list of projects that the staff is proposing that needs to be defunded, or is it part of the slide that you had like 28 items? Is it part of?
So the point of tonight was to present the CIP. There is information in your report about projects, our consideration of each project for defunding. To show facts, our takeaway was we don't recommend defunding projects. So for example, with Stevens Creek Phase 2A, if we were to defund that project, we would not get back $2.3 million. Certain amount of it's already spent, the 277 on the design. And we've also engaged a contractor. So there's a certain amount of the contract funding we wouldn't get back. That's just the money. We're actually, if we begin reneging on signed contracts, that does have an impact on our ability to do business in the area. So we will be going back to council for May 6th and making the case for there's 6 projects that have asked us to consider defunding. Stevens Creek Boulevard, Phase 2A, 2B, and Bandley is there's 3 of the 6 projects to consider. That does not recommend defunding any of those 6 projects.
Sorry, but then still the commissions can make the recommendation. So during discussion, we can bring up the list and look at it.
Yes, the commission is able to provide input in a positive, negative, neutral way, however you wish.
So are they looking for our say in those things, like in terms of, what do you think of these? Or are they going to decide on their own?
I'm not really the best person to ask.
You are presenting the CIP, nice, if you have input, we'll listen.
Okay.
Yes. Yes.
What's the rough timeframe? I'm saying existing CIP projects. Can you give us an idea of all this 28 projects? This is gonna be within 2 years, 5 years, 10 years? What's the kind of your best estimate here for the timeframe it's gonna take us?
On all of them? You want me to go through the list?
Yeah, no, just total, all in all. I mean, when are you thinking you're saying, coming back and say, I'm done with all 28 projects?
Well, you have to keep in mind things like city hall improvements. Right now, it's funded for under $1 million, $500,000. We don't know how that project's gonna go yet. That could be a major project. Take 5 years in itself. The McCollin Road Bridge reconstruction, we're just starting preliminary engineering. We still need to get more funding for that project. That could be 6 years down the road. I'm just taking a step. We are trying our best with the staffing that we have is limited to complete as many projects as possible, honestly. So we did a pretty good job to complete the 4 projects that we did this year. As I said, Jollyman's probably gonna complete this year. Lawrence Mitty, we're heavy in the middle of that project. We have a year's worth of environmental review to go through. So as you know, there's only so much we can do to push that forward. A lot of these are ongoing.
Understood. I thought somehow I misunderstood maybe. I thought those projects are all funded and kind of ready, shovel ready for.
No, not shovel ready. I wish.
Okay.
We're working on them.
Okay, one more clarification question.
Sorry, 2 more quick ones. In terms of the blue transportation, all the projects, I see things, for example, on the Steel Street Bridge repair, the McLean Road Bridge reconstruction. These could have an impact in terms of back pay, because I can think of the McLaren Bridge, for example, giving a non-at-grade access for the Stevens Creek Trail. And so my question is, are the projects that are in blue the only ones that are going, where you're gonna ask for input from the Bike Ped Commission or the overall?
Thank you. That's a very good point.
I can probably talk to that. So there's the bridge maintenance repairs. That's not going to affect any bike or ped facilities. Stevens Creek Bridge repair, we're under early investigation to find out what the extent of that repair will be. We're hoping it's gonna be a less costly, obviously, more of a foundation scour repair, which bike or ped facilities. Get to a point where it's a full bridge replacement, then we'll look and see what can be done to enhance those facilities as long as it's not costing us a lot of extra money, right? For McClellan Road Bridge, we fully expect that to be an enhancement to pedestrian facilities at a minimum on the south side of the bridge, because there is no sidewalk on the south side. We also fully expect that we'll have bike lanes on the bridge. And we will investigate the option of a grade separated pedestrian and bicycle path potentially under the bridge. And again, we'll look at that, and a lot of this is going to cost us a ton of money to do this. If it's gonna be a huge expense, probably not do it, but we do understand if it can be incorporated into the design for a reasonable price, that it does provide us a safety benefit to the community. So it's something we will look into as we go through.
I'm sorry, this is Director Chad Mosley, Director of Public Works.
So, yeah, there's one more last one. Just one, congratulations, by the way, on the first. Yeah, just a quick question for maybe the NZAP bike lanes. I remember that there was a lot of worries from some residents who expressed their concerns about the lane reduction and that they would create a lot of traffic. Can you confirm that these worries are not happen, the materialize?
I can say that I I've been monitoring the traffic since the project was completed and I've made adjustments to signal time along the corridor to keep traffic flowing, and based on my observation, feel it's working about now similarly to how it was operating before the change.
And I will state, I drove it last night as we are as a team observing this to make sure it's operating. I went from Homestead to Bollinger at 5:45, pretty much the peak evening traffic. It took me 7 minutes to get from Homestead to Bollinger, which is a pretty reasonable time. I did see 2 bikes on Piazza at that time.
That's about the amount of time it took previously. We did travel time studies on the corridor prior to the work. And we're gonna do them soon. As a follow-up, just to log the actual numbers, but based on what we've seen and experienced. How things.
Yeah, so I have a couple of questions on the Piazza, the bike lane stuff. So, number one, how much did the whole thing cost? Like, Piazza, bike lane striping, the lane adjustments?
The project was funded for $525,000. We spent that money. We also got $160,000 worth of grant funding
Okay,
to
so roughly $500,000, we were able to do that, Piazza
get design and construction.
construction, right? And Dave, you said, you know, you have to make some signal timing adjustments. Then if you do that, isn't that impacting, you know, the traffic flow? Like, so to answer, you know, this question, keeping everything constant, you know, then we need to measure the traffic flow, right? If you don't adjust, you know, the signal timings and all that, then you're kind of, you know, altering the flow, then it's not the same, like for like, right? So what would be ideal is, what was the traffic flow, the speed and, you know, and number of vehicles traveling and whatnot, you know, on a given time window or for the entire day? Versus, you know, what is the flow now, how much it takes, you know, to go from one end to the other end, you know, that we impacted, right? Without making any other adjustments. Because the moment, you know, you make adjustments to signaling and timing and all that, then you kind of, you know, alter the equation where, you know, the data is not apples to apples.
Well, the data that we want to compare is the before and after delays. Because that's what everybody's experiencing and they're complaining about. It takes so much longer to drive the corridor now. So signal timing is always a function of a lot of different parameters that you have to consider: traffic volumes, number of lanes, time of day, all sorts of things. And when you change anything about the street system, you have to make adjustments to signal timing to compensate. That's just traffic engineering 101. So you can't change the number of lanes and keep the signal timing the same and necessarily expect that you're going to keep the same results. So if you are making a change to one leg of the intersection, you adjust the green times, the red times, the sequence of the phases, so that you end up about the same place in terms of overall delay as you were previous to making the change.
Sure, so that.
Or better, if you like.
No, but then that favored, you know, the Piazza traffic, you know, to keep it the same. But isn't that coming at the cost of something else?
No.
Because it's
Not
a zero sum
necessarily.
game.
No, it's not necessarily.
So I think
It's very complex. There's books on signal timing. It's big. So I'll give you an example. So you have a cycle length that's say 120 seconds. So you have a certain amount of time for each of the 4, right? But portion of that is yellow time and red time, which is always going to be the same, no matter what cycle. So there's a certain amount of time that's lost every cycle because it's yellow, right? And that's a certain percentage of the total time available. If you increase the cycle length to say 150, you can add that amount of time to every phase. So the proportion of green time is the same after as it is before, but you minimize
Minimize the number of yellows.
the impact of the yellow and the red because as a value, that number stays the same. So it's a smaller percentage of the total time of the cycle. So there is a net. So things like that. There's all sorts of different things you can play with in order to make the traffic flow.
As Joel probably knows, there is a whole leg, transportation engineering and civil engineering.
Yeah.
That's
No,
right.
No, I understand, right? I'm hearing a lot of complaints about, you know, people not honoring, the red on the left because of, all these changes. So that, and I personally see it when I drive on, Brianza all the time. I see especially people that are coming towards south on Brianza and making left turn onto Stevens Creek, right? They do not stop, even if it turns, red. So I'm going in towards north and I honk at them, right? Stop it, right? Because, and it's good, somebody is going to get hit head on there, right? So,
We had some of these problems before,
Yeah, and
right? So this isn't new that we're not always able to clear every lane, every cycle. I mean, there's a time, a half hour, 45 minutes during the day when there's just a lot of cars. And sometimes you're not going to make it through on a given cycle. That happened before, and it happens sometimes now. But I didn't just give all the green time to Dianza, so
yeah, I'm not suggesting to change, but I've asked, the sheriff, to stand there and issue tickets to all those people.
red light running is a
We
problem.
have to get better.
I would like to state that we asked him before this project, I mean, I remember years ago. Occasionally we asked the sheriff, just go make your monthly quota, because it does not take long. For you to find somebody going through that red light on a left turn. That's
Pretty dangerous.
before this project, it's always been an issue.
Okay, so
Thank you.
thank you. All. Like, let's go to the public comments and then come back. Like, do we have any comments on this item from the public? I don't. No speaker cards?
No speaker.
Okay.
Seems good. Yeah, have this side.
Okay, let's bring it back to the commission for discussion. At least I wanted to just interject and kind of bring up the action or the recommendation that the council is expecting. Maybe we want to bring up the projects and then, start with that discussion. Doesn't mean that it's limited to that, but I just want to structure the conversation to see whether some actionable can come out of this discussion.
Perfect.
I think it's there in the report, right? So. No, what my question was, council is expecting recommendations or to consider some of the defunding some of the projects. I know that staff doesn't want it to defund the projects, that's what you're recommending, but we still wanted to have a look at that list and see if the commission wants to make any recommendation.
Understood, sorry. There we go.
But doesn't that have to say that in if we put that back up?
Sorry, the action is to receive the presentation. There was no action per se, so you're not required to take a vote on anything. You are, as a commission, welcome to give input, whether it's about supporting a project or defending a project or however, you're welcome to give that input to us and to council.
Yeah, I would like to just bring it up so that, the commission as a full whole has an opportunity to review it and make a recommendation or not make a recommendation, whichever, yeah.
I mean, one thing I observed here is there's kind of two major kind of segments that are built east-west that are pretty parallel, right? There's the Stevens Creek Boulevard and there's the Tamian Trail. So both of them are essentially parallel trails, pretty much the same kind of segment. And I'm wondering if we really have to do both of them at the same time, or if there's a phasing option that we can say prioritize one over the other and say we finish one first, and then once that is finished, do the other one afterwards. Because it seems like there's a little bit of a redundancy here. And I'm not saying we shouldn't do either one of them. I'm just saying there could be an opportunity to save some money in the short term by prioritizing one over the other.
If I may, Chair, keep in mind that Stevens Street Boulevard bikeway was number one on the bike transportation plan. So that motivated this project initially. And Stevens Street Boulevard 2A is underway. We can postpone 2B as long as all the council and commissions wish. Tummy and Innu as a trail, we've hit some difficulties trying to get Valley Water to approve our design. And Apple is now considering their options as well, because it's adjacent to their property. It affects trees on their property. So we're trying to get all the parties to talk and get a consensus. So the point being that Tummy and Innu isn't gonna happen as quickly as we would like.
Should also say, it was fully funded through external funds.
Yes.
There's no city dollars put in that.
Can you put the report back up in live?
So Tommy, you know, all segments are publicly funded?
Yes, sorry, externally.
Externally funded.
Yeah,
Yeah, there's no city dollars towards Tummy and Innu.
that is wonderful.
That's wonderful.
Sorry, Prashant's gonna bring it up.
Do we have
You can stop. You want to use it?
the funding, how much it costs in 21, like, item 21? I'm just curious.
Go to the existing progress.
It's still funding too.
Oh, you're in stuff.
Oh,
Yeah,
that's-
sorry.
Just like the design but and construction, all of it is,
Yes, there you go.
so it will be.
I remember when they went to the commission.
The Tummy and Innu, VTA Measure A, the 600,000, the initial 600,000 for each segment was a developer funded with Apple. From the Apple funding, so. They're developer in like these. Is that correct?
So the entire four
Can you
point
make
seven
it
million. Can you zoom in? Yeah,
Thank you, yeah.
Donations, right? So, we've received more VTA funds for the central segment. The west segment is down the road, we only have the 600,000 original funding, but it's all external funds.
Do you have similar information for item 21? Yes.
Which one is 31?
21 is
21,
road
21.
trip. You go. Scroll down, or scroll up, sorry. There,
Which was?
T5. T5 is 100%, well, we received a major grant from Highway Safety Improvement
Yeah.
Program. So we have matching funds that cities required to contribute.
So is this something that, so what are the kind of things that come under this?
It's basically two things. There's 14 different segments of the roads that's receiving treatment.
It's, yeah, it's high friction pavement treatment along, remember how many,
I think only the high friction payment is only for 7 segments.
7 segments, and then I think there's like 17
70.
locations where we're doing speed radar feedback zones.
Yeah, it's just, and does the speed bumps come under this?
No speed bumps.
Okay, so that's a separate,
Just the treatment of the road and the signage. The signage that says you're doing 35.
okay.
That's all this is.
Well, so $3.5 million just to tell them like you're going too fast.
Yeah.
Well, the high friction pavement is most of that
Cost related.
cost, yeah.
What exactly is that?
It's a pavement treatment that enhances braking action, so reduces the likelihood of accidents. Because this grant was provided under to mitigate a large rear end accident problem at a lot of the intersection approaches throughout the state.
Okay,
So it's worth, since it's on the screen, T4 is the Bollinger Road Corridor Study. We have grant funding for that. Cities contributing the matching funds that are required by the grant. So if we defunded that project, for example,
yeah, no, I'm not recommending defunding that. I just wanted to understand what comes under that, right? Because I'm all for, improving safety all around the city, right? But there are ways, we can do it. I just wanted to see, how much money is there and where does it go, right? So what I'm hearing is, there's more of, saving rear-ending costs for, car drivers than, improving safety for pedestrians or bikers or
Well, transportation as a whole, right? It's a multimodal. So
Yes.
which means that, if you go in vision zero, irrespective of whether you are sitting in a car or walking the road or biking, we want to minimize the high injury, sort of crashes.
Any other questions on projects? So there's 9 projects listed. The first 3 are the Stevens Creek Boulevard projects.
Right.
As we talked about this before. We spent $277,000, we've got $1.5 million in grant funding. So our return, our costs, we wouldn't be getting that much money back, actually. I'll be doing the full kind of math for the council meeting. And there's no funding to be gained by defunding 2B, but there, obviously, that's not a priority any longer. And then family, there's $25,000 of in lieu fees, and the city funding is $125,000-ish. That we would not be putting towards the development of that, or that intersection.
Is that tied to the phase 2 or?
It is not necessarily tied to 2B,
Okay.
but we were gonna do it. We did 2B just because it was an efficient time to do it.
Right, okay.
Yeah.
And keep going down.
And so Bollinger is a grant funded, but city's contributing the matching funds of $106,000. Roadway safety improvements is a grant, $3.25 million grant with $350,000 of city funds. Tommy Ninu, all 3 segments are externally funded. And that's it. Oh, sorry, Slow Walk, that is almost 100%. Externally funded, there's just a bit of money that the city has put towards it. And we've spent almost $1 million to date doing projects from that report.
Any other questions on this list? Yeah, I don't see anything meaningful, right? That kind of savings that will come out of it by defunding like line items. Yeah.
That was a lot of staff's point of view as well, like not getting a lot by defunding these projects, we do have a lot of external funding to make them move forward. Some of these have money that has been sunk into it, and staff doesn't want to recommend pulling out of money that's been sunk into it because it's not necessarily.
Is that true about 2B? Because 2B, it requires funding, right?
So right now, 2B, the design is funded.
Okay,
The construction is not funded. We
Yeah.
are to defund 2B, to maybe a little bit, we have 95% drawings right now, David. So we might as well finish the drawings.
Drawings.
And that's it.
that, yeah, but implementation needs new funding, right?
That's correct.
Okay.
Okay, and towards the end, there was also a list of unfunded projects, and you are continuing to keep that as part of your 5-year plan. Trying to understand what.
So presently, there are no transportation projects in the 5-year plan.
Huh?
But
The unfunded transportation CIP projects. Okay.
right. Building the suspense.
Okay.
So these are projects that have been discussed in the recent past.
I see.
So the Bollinger Road corridor.
Yeah, that was my question. Okay, yeah. Uh-huh.
That we're not sure what that project will be yet. But it's not even on the 5-year plan yet. Because we don't know enough about it. Carmen Road Bridge has been a topic of discussion in the past. We will have recommendations on that. And Stevens Creek Phase 3, we decided that would not be a good project to pursue, but we still on the radar.
Yeah, but does it make sense to keep this? Because while you're having now, your Vision Zero action plan implementation will come into picture and active transportation plan when we develop will come into picture, which will change this list, right?
This list is simply a reporting of projects that have been brought up in the past.
Got it, okay,
Many times the council asked us to show us the projects that have been discussed in the past. So that they're not having to recreate, what did we talk about last time? So this doesn't imply that they should be on the 5-year plan, it's just reported, so. I believe the thing that will generate 5-year plan and 10-year plan projects is the active transportation. Plan. That includes all modes of transportation, right? So here's the transportation, see it, there's. So that's noted just because it's hopefully gonna be a thing, but it's not a thing yet. So.
okay, yeah, so. Okay. Any further questions from the commission?
I do have one question. Do we get a lot of federal funding? Given what's going on in Washington right now, I wouldn't expect there to be a lot. of
We
federal
have some
funding.
federal highway funds, the high-speed friction pavement and signage stuff, that's all federal. We do have some federal funding for the bridge, some of our bridge maintenance projects, not reconstruction, just general maintenance. Is that a good?
Bollinger.
What about the solar,
State Street Federal,
solar roof part?
sorry,
Photovoltaic?
that's, well, it's not, doesn't have any grant funding presently.
It doesn't have any grant money?
No. What we're planning to do is build a project and then submit for reimbursement from the Inflation Reduction Act. It's a long story, but we're planning to get 40% back of our $6.3 million investment. But we've let everybody know that that may not happen.
Yeah, if it, there's a good chance it may not happen, that seems like a good project to be. Fine.
We have been asked recently, are any of our grants compromised or is anything being defunded? We have no official word that anything is defunded at this point.
But shouldn't we be using our judgment to see, you know, what's happening and, you know, what's likely to happen, because.
We're
I was gonna say, for that project, would have been a tax reimbursement, right? That's what the IRA is. So we've got a reimbursement on the project. Staff did look at this project, it's $6 million, no, it's actually $4.5 million, I think is what the final is. Even at that price, there is a return on investment in 15 years. So it's still like, even if we don't get the IRA reimbursements, there's a return on investment for 15 years, so that makes sense for a long-term investment. We get the IRA, return on investment is like 9 years. So there's still value in proceeding with that project for the city in the long run. So that's one of those things that, you know, it's one reason we don't recommend defunding it. There is long-term value for the city. And if council may decide otherwise, that's their prerogative, but this is our recommendation.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you all, so I assume that no more questions, right? Okay, yeah.
And we're not voting on it.
No, there is no actionable item coming out of this discussion, so. Yeah, thank you for your presentation. Okay, so next one is the Stevens Creek Boulevard Corridor Vision Study. And staff will give a presentation on this one, and there's an expected recommendation to the city council from Pike Petrol.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you.
I'll,
The command center.
this is the command center. This is Matt Schrader, our senior and transportation planner, who has been my partner on this project, which has been some years in the development and multi-jurisdictional efforts to get to the point of the development vision study. And but Matt will go through all the details. So I'll turn it over to Matt.
Yes, thank you, David, for the introduction. I mentioned Matt Schrader, Senior Transportation Planner. So before we begin, just to give you a little sense of how we got to where we're at today with the project, it started in 2017. when staff from the corridor agencies began to meet semi-regularly just to discuss how they could potentially partner to enhance the corridor. This working group was eventually formalized in 2019 when the council approved funding for Cupertino to participate in the study to look at the corridor, and that project kicked off in 2022. So Cupertino's participation in this study was explicitly directed by the council adopted resolution, which stated that Cupertino would support a complete street study and continue the conversation about potential high capacity transit, so long as it followed these requirements, not negatively impact general purpose lanes or use general purpose lanes for grade separated transit. B, the grade separated transit would be, or the transit would be grade separated, and that grade separated transit would consider an alternate alignment along I-280. Some context on the project area: it spans 9 miles, crosses the city of Cupertino, Santa Clara, San Jose, and county right of way. The center line of the boulevard is the right of way in many areas, especially between Winchester Boulevard and Lawrence Expressway. Kind of adding to the complexity of the project area, the roadway's width and lane configuration vary in different sections. As you can see from this graphic, some areas have on-street parking, some have bike lanes, some have both. And then kind of lastly on the project area, I think it's helpful to note just the importance of the work, as it includes destinations like Vance College, Diridon Station, Valley Fair, and numerous major automobile dealerships. And then these images in the lower right here visualize what I was talking about in the last slide with how the roadway configuration varies depending on where you're at, pretty dramatically in some parts. So about the project itself and how it's governed, it was driven at a high level by the steering committee, comprised of elected officials from each project agency. The steering committee then decided to establish a community advisory group, which was made up of neighborhood representatives from various parts of the corridor. The public was heavily involved throughout the process, and these three groups kind of worked together to move the project through. So the project consisted of 3 phases, all kind of driven by a lot of outreach. This included identifying community needs, then developing a vision for the corridor, and then coming up with recommendations or project recommendations that could help realize that vision. Each jurisdiction was provided with an equivalent amount of outreach that included sit downs with specific groups and steering committee meetings that were hosted in each jurisdiction. In addition to the online webinars and open public meetings, Cupertino residents were directly engaged in the following ways, and the Deanza Farmers Market and Deanza Flea Market were key touch points for the outreach team, as you can see in this image in the lower right here. So during the first phase of the project, various outreach methods were used to identify community needs along the corridor. This graphic was developed after summarizing those different community input methods, just to visualize the level of comfort and convenience for different transportation modes across the corridor. And the image in the lower right is one of those input methods, the outreach that was conducted at the Kansas Farmers Market. And as you can see there was a lot of public comment received at that specific location. So the outcomes from each phase inform the subsequent phase. In phase 1, the community identified key issues in the corridor. This led to a development of general concepts for a vision. And that vision was formed by the CAG and the public. So there's a lot of back and forth in developing the actual vision. And then from there, individual project recommendations were developed. And these project recommendations are projects that were already identified in the various cities' existing plans. So the vision was an iterative process. It took months to develop. It's comprised of 2 parts here. The first is kind of a general statement on what the corridor agency should strive to create, and that is a place that is safe and enjoyable for people of all ages and abilities, as well as all transportation modes. And the second part of the vision goes into detail about the elements that can be implemented to achieve that broader vision. This includes an emphasis on transit, the need to be pedestrian and bicycle friendly, and also consider the need for efficient automobile travel across the corridor. So to realize the vision, the community looked at existing agency planned projects that could be advanced to help achieve this vision. This was originally called an implementation plan, but at the final steering committee meeting, the steering committee moved to amend the plan to change it to the recommendation plan, which is really what it should have been to begin with. And then during this phase, like I kind of already mentioned, various projects were evaluated by the community to see which they felt should be prioritized. And these community selected projects were then categorized into these 3 timeframes here. So in terms of the near-term projects here, the near-term projects can really be thought of as a package of projects or programs that are more placemaking oriented, just to make the corridor feel pleasant to be in, just a better place to experience, which is one of the primary goals of the first part of the vision statement. The second set of near-term projects relates to the transit first vision for the corridor. And it includes projects that would be led by VTA with ongoing coordination and approval from each agency. And these recommended projects are all policy oriented and emphasize the need for corridor-wide coordination in order to optimize existing transit service. And again, kind of consistent with the vision of a safer, more enjoyable corridor, various bike and ped projects were identified, as well as the need to add shade trees along the corridor to improve the overall feel and experience of the space. And as you can see from the image here, Cupertino has pretty exceptional street trees that prominently line Stevens Creek. So we're doing a great job. The midterm projects. So these are the 10-year projects, and these consist of intersection and crossing projects that enhance safety at key locations. And during the bike tour, which happened, participants traveled to the McClellan De Anza intersection and remarked that this is exactly kind of the type of safety improvements and protection that they would like to see be implemented at those locations across the board. So that's kind of very representative of what the community is expecting in terms of future improvements to Stevens Creek. And then the last category, the long-term project, is to further study grade separated high capacity transit while also adhering to stated resolution to look at an alternate alignment along I-280. And the example timeline here comes from VTA and is based off of the East Ridge light rail extension project. So at the final steering committee meeting, the committee did 2 things really. It amended the plan, like I mentioned, to rename it the recommendation plan rather than the implementation plan. And then it also kicked it back to each jurisdiction so that they could further review it within a local context. So next steps to the project. At this time, the next steps are to keep the steering committee and the working group to develop strategies on how to move the plan forward. And it's important to note that if the city accepts the plan, that in no way constitutes the city's approval of all the projects that are in the plan. And each one of the projects in the plan is at the discretion of each participating agency to move forward. And currently the study is making its way through each jurisdiction's approval process. And the steering committee is aiming for a June meeting to discuss project or progress on the plan's adoption and to give staff direction on how to proceed. So if major changes are recommended by any of the jurisdictions, Staff will bring a discussion to the steering committee to find consensus, which then may require a second round of local processes within each separate jurisdiction. And then after the final adoption of the study, staff will continue to report to the steering committee at regular intervals, which tentatively is planned to be quarterly. So as you know from the agenda, the recommended action for this item is that recommend the city council accept Stevens Creek Boulevard corridor study as is. And with that, I'm happy to answer any questions.
Any, okay, thank you. Additions, okay. Do we have any questions? Yes, Vice Chair, so.
I was wondering on the community reach, so that slide here that you shared with us.
Yeah.
So it appears to be that in the Cupertino segment, a lot of it is somewhat comfortable and convenient, or very comfortable and convenient. While in many of the other segments, it's uncomfortable and inconvenient.
That's correct.
Even if I look at the segment in Cupertino that's uncomfortable, that's the area where we have already made separated bike lanes. Why is that the case?
I'm sorry, I was focused on getting the slides up onto the PowerPoint here. You were asking why is it the case that?
Yeah, I was just wondering, it looks like the feedback from the community here has been that the segment we put already in the protected bike lanes is identified as uncomfortable. And while the area where there's no bike lanes is actually convenient and comfortable. I'm talking about Cupertino specifically here.
Yeah, I can't speak to public perception about that. That's a summary of the input that was received. So that's just the community's feelings of
Actually,
how it
if
exists.
you look at the segment, the crossing between Lawrence Expressway and the 280, and there is no bike lane.
Yeah, trying to get there.
There is no protected bike lane in that specific segment, so that's maybe why.
Maybe.
Can you go to the?
Yeah, I mean, it's reasonably comfortable throughout Cupertino.
Yeah,
That's very end.
the key message is Cupertino is actually doing a great job.
Yeah.
The bad part starts at Lawrence.
Yeah, and during our walking tours, so we had walking tours, transit tours, and biking tours, and participants remarked like so pretty loudly that they love the environment of Cupertino and were very supportive and appreciative of the investments that Cupertino has made to create this environment. And I feel like that's reflected in the color coded graphic here.
So except for the rolling part, the
Yes.
Cupertino segment seems, pretty good. The rightmost segment, wherever that is in San Jose, requires a lot of work, because almost everything is red except, transit, right? So which is good to know. So can you go back 2 slides? One more, yeah. So this, this one. So for something of this massive scale and change, right?
Yeah.
This kind of a community outreach seems, very, very, like, almost not a community outreach, because you would think, for something like this, like, almost everyone, in that 9 mile stretch, would be asked for input, like some kind of, survey or, online survey or something like, where we reach thousands and thousands of people for them to weigh in on, what's going to happen to that 9 mile segment, right? This seems like, the numbers I see here, 40 people interviews and, and some 4 focus groups and 7 pop-up events. That's equal to, something like, small bike lane in like a 1 mile segment of street, some side street.
I think part of the disconnect is that the name of the plan is the Hard Vision Study, and there's this perception that this will be the guiding document to reshape the corridor, and in many ways it will be, but it's just the first step. Like Cupertino's commitment financial commitment was $150,000. So relative to our bike plan, which is fully grant-funded at $300,000, it may be helpful to kind of think about it in those terms.
Yeah, this is, but it was budget driven to a large extent by, San Jose's actually led the contract, and then there's a contribution from each of the cities based upon, so outreach is very expensive.
Yeah. But we are talking about no 10 years, 20 years type of thing, right? And so to me, that 9 mile segment would undergo massive change, right? Next 10, 20 years, right? If this is going to be formed, is going to be the basis for that, right? You would think, this would be like a massive, outreach, kind of really, get people input and then decide, what's going to happen, right? Instead of, doing some little study here and, and that, use that as a blueprint. And then later on say, yeah, we did all this study and it was set in the stone 5 years ago, so we cannot change it, right? So I'm just trying to avoid a situation where people feel that, they haven't had an opportunity to weigh in or participate, right? If we're doing it, we should do it right.
Yeah, this is a lot of outreach. I mean, it's not, this is a very much a distilled summary of what was done, but the groups were very well attended. These were all morning bike rides that were performed. The committee or the consultant team reached out to all the major neighborhood groups and stakeholders along the
So
coast.
let's take the first line. It says, stakeholder interviews. Are we saying, we interviewed 40 people, or we say,
No, 40 groups. So
so what's the total count?
of individuals touched,
Yeah, yeah.
I don't know.
Okay.
It was a lot of people. I mean,
Yeah.
Any other clarifying question?
I do have a question. So in Cupertino, let me back up a little bit. There's discussion in the study regarding speeding up the bus line, getting from like De Anza to Dearborn Station in 30 minutes. Is that, do they plan on having a dedicated bus lane for that? Or is that just,
There,
and then it won't happen in Cupertino because we're not agreeing to that. Is that correct?
there was strong community interest in a project like that. It's not a recommended project from this plan.
Okay, so.
Yeah. So it's something that was considered and discussed, and ultimately not recommended.
Yeah, I guess I didn't get that from the study. I just saw it was one of the items.
Yeah.
The cost per mile and comparing it to the.
Failure in the report and how it's formatted and some ambiguity in terms of what explicitly were the recommended projects from each of those categories, the near, mid, and long term. Yeah.
So I have a question regarding the funding. In fact, to go and look at one of the community engagement feedback, and also you had what improvements are proposed. Cupertino is all green compared to what more needs to be done for Santa Clara versus San Jose, right? So we have very limited improvements that we need to do in order to adhere to this vision.
I don't know if I would necessarily say that. I would say relative to the other cities, we are pretty phenomenal in terms of the infrastructure that we're providing, given that everything that's happening in San Jose lasts.
Yeah, because it will take years before they can come to the Cupertino's level.
They have a lot of projects in the pipeline that they're eager to deliver. So I don't know if I would say years.
Okay, so who provides the funding? Like, is it like individual jurisdictions? Like, yeah, the vision is put out, but eventually it's the city of Cupertino that's responsible for funding the projects in that jurisdiction, right?
That's correct. Yeah.
Okay, so which means that.
I mean, yes, let me qualify a little bit. So yes, but projects that can be identified as comprehensive along an entire corridor could be packaged as a multi-jurisdictional funding, like if you're looking for grant, those sort of projects that show cooperation among many agencies are more holistic, are better positioned to receive some grant funding. So in that sense, kind of like what we've done with Hopper and the City of Santa Clara as a, joint partnership on the grant. But ultimately, every city is responsible for finding other fundings themselves for projects within their jurisdiction.
So including the transit system that they were discussing, even that individual cities needs to fund those segments that are going to be in their city, the cities.
Something like that would need substantial
Okay, that would be
outside funding.
Okay. Okay, at the level of our tax dollars coming out of, the people in Cupertino, I don't know whether.
Cupertino would maintain the fiscal decision of making
Yeah.
ability for any projects within the city, whether it's from grants or whether it's from local tax.
Some,
Can you go to the slide, bus speed, reliability and experience slide?
Yeah.
That's. Balance. Yeah, this one, right?
Oh. Down.
Yeah. So last bullet, can you shed some light on the last bullet? What does it mean?
I think the last bullet speaks for itself. It's pretty clear and it was in our resolution.
So is that in the city municipal code or something like that? Like, I'm trying to understand,
No, this is coming
Yes,
from,
statement that
this
no-
is coming from our stated resolution, which is what brought us into the project in the first place.
Okay, so this is a precondition for Cupertino participating in this effort. Like
In
we
this
said
effort,
upfront.
yes.
Okay,
So can you clarify when you say we, that who is that? The city council? Is that staff? Is that who's?
Sorry, the council.
City Council passed a resolution in 2019.
2019
That
saying that,
explicitly says it.
yeah, so that means, that's the law for Cupertino.
Unless they change,
Unless they,
pass another resolution.
Resolution needs to happen if that needs to stay, so, okay.
because each city, I believe each city has passed a resolution similar to Cupertino. And that's what is the guiding principle for their participation in this vision,
that's correct.
right?
So are we saying that every city has, none of the cities participating support the conversion of lanes?
No, some cities do.
So some cities, which ones? Or
I don't know. I don't recall off the top of my head if Santa Clara or San Jose did.
I think they haven't explicitly prohibited it. They haven't, but I don't believe they prohibited one another, so they're open-minded.
So basically, with this statement, we are saying, we will not compromise on the number of lanes on Stevens Street Boulevard, for car traffic that exists today. That's basically what it,
That's what the council said in 2019.
okay. Good to know.
Any other questions?
I'm just trying to understand the concrete efforts in Cupertino here. If I look at again, this one map here that shows Cupertino all in green. What is it that you're missing actually from?
There are various spot improvements and then so associated with the. Where is the bike head? There's a recommendation in here to completely implement all the city plans. So the implementation plan will obviously develop a new set of projects. And those projects would be considered as projects that would need to be implemented under this recommendation here. So it's those kinds of projects. There's also projects that came out of the local roadway safety plan, like the Banley intersection, but that was then packaged into the Stevens Creek Bikeways project.
But there's nothing that came out concretely out of this plan that would be affecting Cupertino, other than, of course, additional projects that we are coming up with as part of future plans.
There are projects associated with the local roadway safety plan and other minor infrastructure projects, but again, anything that the working group would, or any project that the steering committee would want the working group to pursue would then have to be brought to each individual city and go through the approval process. So we come back to you guys and then council would then need to authorize.
So what's the action or recommendation that you're expecting from the commissioner?
The recommended action is to recommend the city council to accept the vision study as
as is, you don't expect, do you see that it follows the guiding principles that the Cupertino has set?
I do.
Okay, so, okay, I'll come to it during the discussion. I saw that Santa Clara has already made some recommendation with some changes. They met in January, I believe.
I'm not aware of that.
Okay, so do you know what they have recommended? And similarly, I don't know whether what City of San Jose made any changes or amendment or proposing any amendments to this?
I haven't received any emails through the working group notifying me of changes to the document.
And they haven't completed their approvals yet.
Maybe there was a discussion way back and may not have been discussed yet in their council's prospective councils. Okay. Any other questions? Sorry. Alright.
You can. Well, yeah.
Hold up, we will get back to the public comments later. Yeah, so no more clarifying comment, then I will take public comments. Each one of you have like 3 minutes to make your comments. And then we'll bring it back to the council for discussion. Any questions or comments?
So we have 3 speaker cards. So I'll start with the big Griffin. So you can start.
Good evening, Councilmember, Commissioner, staff. I want to say a couple things. When you do your recommendations, I ask you to reaffirm that no support for conversion of lanes. Also, because there seems to be a conflict from what it's saying and what it says. Because they plan to do it in steps, the bus / trucks, and then the trucks disappear and it's buses only. That's what it says in the document. It also feels like, ask for the acceptance in the plan that the city is not committed to implement everything in the plan. Because it seems like you're signing to do that, but he's saying you're not, that it'll come back. So put that understanding in there. Also, it says that they're looking long-term, the I-280 in Stevens Creek mass transit. Doesn't make sense to make both. The region doesn't have the money to do both. I'm concerned about the loss of the curbside lane. The loss of control, giving up, VTA will take control of the signals from what I've read, but that's not what we're being told. Okay, the other thing is there's, 18 intersections in Cupertino. If I remember right from the document. I'm asking that when those intersections are being designed for changes, to bring it back to a public hearing. There were lots of trouble with Wolf and Stevens Creek. And just running it by the public instead of just doing it. Is my request. And I'm a walker, I'm a hiker, and I bike. Not as much as I used to, because I crashed. But I understand that there are multiple modes of transportation. And as you get older, you don't walk as far and you don't bike usually. Some people do. But people rely on walkers, they rely on buses or hopper or cars. So we need to think about everybody. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next.
The next speaker will be Harry.
Good evening, commissioners. My name is Harry Neal. I'm a local transportation advocate, a student at De Anza College, and a member of VTA Citizens Advisory Committee, but I'm here today in my personal capacity. First of all, thank you for your presentation, Matt. Mr. Chair, you had some things that you appeared to have questions that weren't able to fully answer. On the topic of Santa Clara recommending changes, that has not happened. I've been watching their council like a hawk, and I have not heard a word about that, so I do not believe it is accurate. What you said about the city's funding the projects individually, that would happen for single jurisdiction projects as far as I'm aware. So if Cupertino wants to do an improvement that is solely in Cupertino based on this project, then that would be Cupertino funded, as far as I'm aware. But for anything multi-jurisdictional, it would be funded multi-jurisdictionally. For something like high capacity transit, which would be expensive, that would be funded almost exclusively by BTA. That would not be coming out of the Cupertino city. One of the things that the previous public commenter mentioned, the idea of BTA taking over signals, that is not accurate, and that would not be happening. So that is a concern addressed a little bit. And it is also important to note that as Matt mentioned, the city in part of the resolution said that council will not support any conversion of general purpose lanes. Personally, I think it's a terrible idea, but you are not voting on changing that at all. So if you are to recommend to council that the study be accepted as is, that would not change anything about Cupertino's commitments to preserving the number of lanes for general purpose traffic. San Jose and Santa Clara can do that if they wish, and it is actually shown. I have a study here from MTI in at San Jose State. Quote, from the results, it can be concluded that the installation of bus lanes did not have a negative impact on overall traffic conditions. This is from, again, a study at MTI, one of the best transportation institutes in the country, from SJSU. So if they decide to do it, it won't impact traffic negatively. But this is an incredibly important study, and I do hope that you will recommend to council to accept it as is, because many of the recommendations in that study are safety issues. And if a consensus has to be redeveloped, that puts delay on safety improvements, which means that people will get hurt. Please accept as it's. Thank you.
We have one more speaker, Emily.
Hi, my name is Emily. I've been a resident of Cupertino for 15 years. So I knew about this vision study back in September, which was the second last meeting of this study. And then I personally attended the final meeting on December the 18th at Santa Clara City Hall. And I thank Matthew, for your very clear summary. But your summary is not the same as the summary that is provided by the vision study itself, because that vision study has a lot of things that we have to be aware of. And primarily, the last page has a lot of figures that are to do with money matters. So no way can we adopt or say agree with it as is. We have to look at what Santa Clara did, and then we have to put in a lot of qualifications, and we have to make sure that it's understood that Cupertino passed with flying colors. We are very minimally involved in the complete street vision because we already have street trees, we already have the street medians. So I don't even know why we are involved, except, to play good with San Jose, who funded the project by paying the Winter Group. So there are 3 different cities, and different parts of the boulevard have different characters. And what's wrong with that? We have the best looking part, which is in tune with what the city of Cupertino is like. And then Santa Clara has all the car dealerships, and that's fine. Why do we need street medians there when they need the transporters for vehicles to come to the dealerships? I cannot see how they will operate in their businesses. So to me, the whole project is like strange in why was it commissioned in the first place? And as part of outreach, because I learned about it late, I went with another volunteer in Santa Clara. He's an old timer who's been around for 40 years. We went into most of the car dealerships in one day, and all of them were taken aback. They didn't know anything about this vision study, and it will hurt their business. And I have collected signatures from them. But I didn't bring them today because I just came back from a trip. I have to dig them up and then I will present it to Cupertino. Why did I go to Santa Clara? Because they're the biggest businesses along the corridor that I know of. Then outreach. They did a lot of outreach as shown by the pictures and the list. But the reality is, I think Muni pointed out, I mean, vast amounts of people need to be notified. And there are still, it's just that whoever was notified is just a small sector, not the major sector that you would be interested in. I could go out, yes. Thank you. So don't adopt it as is, but with a lot of qualifications and give Cupertino high marks.
Thank you. All right, that will bring it back to the commission for further discussion. So I think just to start, to give a structure, and it doesn't mean that that's what we are to discuss, but I think we should start with the Cupertino's guiding principles and then see how the vision study compares against that and see if we have to make any. Maybe that we can use it as a guideline for starting the discussion, but you're free to make other comments.
So my question is, like, what does it mean to kind of adopt this or, recommend, like, is it binding in any ways? Like, I'm just trying to understand, what is it we are getting into?
It's not binding in any way.
Okay.
And the interest of the city is like David's point earlier. If we have projects in the future, this is a great study that we can reference and leverage to show how we're coordinating with this corridor, this vital corridor for the county. And that's looked at much more favorably by granting agencies. Whether than if we were to opt out of a study like this, we wouldn't be able to have a resource like this to point to say, hey, this improvement is critically important because it impacts all these people across the corridor.
Okay, thanks for the clarification. So that's great. So I agree that, things that span across multiple cities, there's got to be a common framework, based on which, you can seek funding from various agencies and all that. I agree. But at the same time, I don't want us to lose what we have, right? Like, I mean, everything that we have, they're passing with, flying colors, and I don't want to compromise that, right? So, and I agree with, some of the speakers where, there's a lot of confusion about this thing, right? What we are seeing and hearing here versus, what's been the general perception out there, there's a big disconnect, right? So I think there's some work to be done in terms of, really, educating the public that, what it is that, we are trying to do. So that way, everybody is on board and supports it. Because this is going to affect the lives of people along those corridors. Right? So that's kind of, high level comment. And if you're adopting this and, and I don't know, like I would like to incorporate, some of the recommendations here in terms of, signal changes or intersection changes. That's got to be, brought to public, right? It cannot be like, just because we signed up on this, everything is going to be done without public, right?
Any project would be brought back to the city, whether the plan is accepted or not. Anything that we do along the corridor of any magnitude would be brought back
Those
to the commissions.
Yeah.
The commissions, if it impacts what the commissions discuss, and certainly to the city council for discussion and approval. Nothing is going to be advanced, funded, and built without the oversight of the commissions and the council, just because it's in a document.
Okay, so any questions?
No question. I think in terms of discussion, I'm just curious as to what was mentioned here, the risk of losing something. That what exactly is there a risk of losing something? I'm not sure I understood the comments. So can you help us understand, like, what is the risk losing without us having a say?
It's not a risk of, we're not going to lose anything we have. It's missing an opportunity to get funding towards projects in the future that we may want that fall across, you know, two or more of the jurisdictions that are involved in the study, and that we can point to the fact that we are a partner with San Jose or Santa Clara or both at VTA to develop visions for concepts that positions us better to receive funding for projects in the future that we may want. We may not want to pursue these projects either, which is fine, you know. But if we do, then it helps us get the money.
Let me be more specific, right? Like, let's say, somebody imagines, we want, let's say, light shuttle students, or, yeah, dedicated high-speed bus lane, for this 9 miles, right? We're not going to build, a flyover, right? So it's going to be on the existing, right? So that means, we will lose one of the lanes, right? If we are going to have a dedicated bus lane, right? So is that something that could be sprung up on us because, we signed up on this one?
No, you really think that a dedicated bus lane or an overhead rail is going to be built without
No,
our city council involvement?
no.
Okay,
We would be all out of jobs.
but having said that, that's precisely what the study recommends. Like, if you look at the transit, recommendation that they're making, 2 options that they're providing, right? I think there was also a public comment on that when I read that section, right? So they're talking about, one above grade, transit, high-speed transit up to Dianza College. That's one thing. The second one they're talking about is, alternate approach, explore alternate approach aligned with 280, right? That's the second option. And there's also discussion about saying that, let's do both, right? Or let's have the option. I don't know what that discussion is over there. If it is, have they made up the mind, or is it like the transit is just more of a discussion point, or what?
Yeah.
Why should we just go and endorse whatever is there in the document as is?
So as you know, this the last page of the document, for example, the estimate for capital costs separated high capacity transit systems. So potential capital component,
What
right?
is it?
It's not in the.
It's not in the presentation of it, it's from the report. It's the last page of the report. And it's a list of 8 or so options, alternatives. So obviously we're not endorsing all of them. We're not endorsing any of them. This is a list of things that can be considered by one or more future if they desire. These are the costs. These are the, costs and benefits for each of the alternatives. This is just an information for the agencies to look to in the future as they consider transit improvements, whatever they may be. This one specifically says excluding Cupertino section. So that is something that if they do, it's not going to affect us. So there's no commitment to do anything. This is just a list of potential improvements for information.
So it seems like maybe one way to tackle this would be, it sounds like there is benefit to the study. Potentially, we don't know, but potentially there could be a benefit to the city. But on the other hand, I feel the same way. Everything I've heard so far, I agree with you. What was said here, in a sense, we have to absolutely make sure that those things don't slip in over time, because those things have the tendency that we take things in isolation and then they kind of become a fact. So I think if we kind of make very clear about some of the things that are maybe already stated somewhere in a convoluted way, but stated explicitly, that like no conversion of lanes, Cupertino is already doing great, we have already a fantastic infrastructure. Some of those things, some of the comments from the public here were wonderful. If we do that, that seems like is a possible path forward here. We just have to be really careful to be inclusive of those things that we state explicitly as part. Okay, we are signing on, but we are not committing to any of the project whatsoever. We are. I think that's probably what I think would be a possible path forward here.
Okay, Commissioner Wolf.
So I've read through the document and, I think it's a real win for the city because, the way I know that federal funding works and I've attended a number of seminars, is that if you got a 9 mile stretch, the federal government is much more likely to put in, as it currently stands, maybe a lot of money if we have a 9 mile stretch with that enhances transportation, rather than having just one individual project like the intersection. Is that the case? Is that true? So we wanted to
It
improve,
would be looking
like
more
Stevens
favorable.
Creek and Deanza, which is, in my mind, I live very close, is a problem intersection. It's on this document. It's in this document, that safety improvements. And so it's possible that we get outside funding if that was part of a corridor, long-term corridor design.
It's more likely you would be successful in receiving outside funding.
And the other thing I see is that, I mean, I do agree that it looks like Cupertino is well along. I mean, we don't have to make nearly as many modifications as other cities. I mean, I did go on the bike ride, and the one comment that I heard, there's a bike ride from like, I think it's corner of Dan's and Stevens Creek down all the way to like the Honda dealership. And one thing that I did hear is that when we got to the separated bike lanes, people really liked that. It was really, there was a lot of people that didn't live in Cupertino that were doing this corridor, thought, wow, this is great. You guys are lucky. And so I think I took that as positive feedback that Cupertino's doing the right things in that area. I think it's, and we're not really signing up. If we agree to this document, we're not agreeing to anything, to do anything is that correct? But if we are part of the study, part of a long-term design, we would get funding. And I happen to think that, I like this because even though in Cupertino, there are some advantages, I think there's a lot more advantages for some of these other cities, which we don't have any jurisdiction. If you've ever watched, there's kids that go from Cupertino High underneath 280 and Lawrence Expressway. That is not safe, but you got kids riding bikes coming from the high school. And so I think that's the type of improvement that I think we would get. A separated bike lane that's safe for young kids to travel on. And there's also, I look at the early part of the study. It said that you give the statistics for the people that live along this corridor. And I was a little shocked that 20% of the people that live within a half mile of the corridor make $50,000 or less. And that there's really a lot of service workers that ride their bike. If you go to Lazy Dog, there's people that work there. Actually, you always see the bike racks full because they come, and I watch them. They come from down Stevens Creek. So I think that corridor needs to be, that's really a benefit for some of the other cities, even though I'm all for safety improvements in Cupertino, of course, but I'm saying I like the overall concept of the study.
Thank you. Okay, can you help bring that, Cupertino's resolution?
The,
Yeah,
Slide.
resolution or a slide that summarizes the resolution,
oh. From the one.
which is the guiding principles, yeah, exactly, right, yeah.
Oh, the 2019 resolution?
Yes, yes.
Oh, you want me to pull it from here? And have it there?
Do you have it?
Yeah, present, I have the presentation.
Oh, it's not in the presentation. I don't believe.
Did you want the slide from the presentation, Chair,
Or
or?
fine, you can start with the presentation, or if you have a real
I have the resolution.
resolution handy, you can bring that.
Yeah, I think maybe that's gonna pull, yeah.
What specifically are you looking at? Probably this section here.
Yeah, that's all, yeah. So basically, we are saying, don't touch Stevens Street segment of Cupertino for the high.
So the purpose of high capacity transit.
Yeah, high capacity transit, offense, because it's going to come at the cost of, the existing traffic. lanes. Pretty much that's what we're saying, yeah, right?
Yes.
And you're fine with supporting streetscape improvements or
Yeah.
on the current.
So,
And alternate alignment for the high speed transit along 280. Right, as opposed to being on street.
Can you scroll down a bit? I want to see. Stevens. Okay, so unanimous, all 5 council members voted unanimously on this. Good.
I mean, this, yeah,
So there is nothing in this, that overrides this or it compromises this, right?
No.
well, the only thing I'm not clear, maybe I wanted to clarify that first. So the last point is right, study alternate alignment. And then there was a discussion, maybe correct me if I'm wrong, right? Discussion about the high speed transit, right? And there are different options that were discussed there.
About
What
the
is the
idea.
recommendation that the vision study is actually recommending?
The vision study did briefly discuss the alignment along I-20.
Yes.
It wasn't as deep of a dive as the.
But if you go through it, like I interpret it as saying that let's do both.
Yeah.
Right? That doesn't make sense because it's a really very, very expensive project, and if you want to align all of the cities together, you either pick one or the other.
Well, study both, not necessarily construct.
Study.
Determine which is most viable.
But isn't that what exactly is happening with the trail and with Stevens Creek? When we talked about the CRP projects earlier, this is exactly what we're doing, right? Doing both.
Study. Not necessarily build.
My understanding is that both are CRP projects that
No,
are.
I'm talking about the vision study projects.
Right, but if we already do them, why do we need to study them? I'm just confused here.
I think, so that one was the bike lanes and, and the train. right?
Uh-huh.
This one is
This is transit.
high speed transit, either on Stevens Creek
Or the.
or on 280.
Oh, on 280.
Maybe you want to big the picture speaks volumes, like, it's like a really high speed. Something like a light rail, for example, right?
I see.
Right, that, do you want that light rail to be running in the middle of the Stevens Street Boulevard or above grade
Yeah,
on Stevens Street Boulevard, and for example, like this?
Like-
Or do you want that to be running in parallel somewhere aligned with 280?
Or underground as an option.
Should be underground.
Underground.
Yes, but did they discuss about underground?
It's one of the options. It's the most expensive one.
Underground?
Okay.
Okay, so. So it's just that they're saying that, what you wanted to study.
so
Are we ready to, my take would be like, I would really like you go back to one more, there was one more thing on the projects and. Overall, there was an improvement, right, saying that what are the corridors needs improvement along Stevens Creek Boulevard? And then there was comparative analysis between the cities. There's a kind of a simple picture,
Oh.
It was there in the Santa Clara B says,
Yeah,
right there as well.
this one
Not this one. There was one more.
in the slide. Oh,
Not, maybe not the slide, maybe in the one. Yeah, can go back one? Yeah. Something similar to that. I think Santa Clara City had a better slide that which described that, I think. Yeah, if you can see, right, so bike lanes, most of it was actually green towards Cupertino as other commissioners observed as well. And there's less improvements to be made once you cross Lawrence City. Right, towards Cupertino. Also, we have multiple projects in flight as you see, which are further improving what we already have. Whereas to go east of Lawrence Expressway, you don't even have bike lanes, for example, in some of the sections, right? So if that's the case, I don't know what. Maybe you need to be more prescriptive in saying that these are the changes that we already have in Cupertino, and not necessarily that they are aligned. Of course, we are in support of what the other cities wants to do, but then there are some discussions going on saying remove the bike, remove the convert one of the lanes to bus lanes and things like that. Are they just discussion points, or is it like will be taken as recommendations, and then they'll come back to Cupertino and say that you do the same thing because we are doing on the other side of the city, right? Or cities.
Not
So
exactly.
I'm sorry, I'm not following the question.
No, what I'm saying is like the moment you say there are discussions, I understand that there are multiple kind of what if scenarios or discussions also in this study, right? But my point is, if you say that you agree to this study,
We're accepting the study.
Or accepting the study.
We're not agreeing to do anything necessarily from the study. Again, any project that would happen in Cupertino would require considerable outreach and approval through our decision-making bodies.
I think it not only know the lanes, but intersection changes.
Intersection changes as well, yes.
But because in the city council resolution, the intersections were not covered, it just talked about, not losing lanes.
Well, so we can propose
Yeah.
intersection improvements, but that doesn't mean that they are going to bypass our standard processes.
So few comments from my side. So first of all, I heard from the public comments, things like the exceptional infrastructure, the passing with flying colors. I very much agree with that. I think that it's a great endorsement for our city's infrastructure that includes the protected bike lane and the protected bike lane on Stevens Creek that make it so enjoyable to ride on Stevens Creek. The second thing that I would note is on slide number, I think 11, where you can see that things are not exclusive. So you see the driving, for example, part is in deep blue, while transit, ride, and walk, all of them are also in blue. So I think that's something that really caught my attention here. On the grand scheme of things, I think that what this study is saying is that Cupertino has the right to accept or decline any sort of projects that are going to be proposed through that study. But I think that also our city, as much as we love it, it doesn't live in a vacuum. And maybe we can play the ostrich and put our hand in the sand and see what the other cities are going to propose and stuff. But I think we would be much better served, and the city would be much better served if we were participating actively to the kind of conversation that are going to impact the rest of the Stevens Creek Boulevard. Because if we're not there, we don't get to play, we don't get to bring our opinion to what the changes could look like. And so accepting that vision, that study, I think is a first step in the right direction, because that way you say, well, we don't agree to everything that's in the study. There are things that maybe we don't like that are actually already codified at the city council level. And if there are projects that fundamentally we disagree with as a city, then we're not going to take part with them. And so I don't see the downside of it if we are able to decline some projects that our city council disagrees with. I don't see the downside of having a seat at the table, talking to all the people who are gonna work on that project and are gonna listen to our input, and so I think it's a win for the city.
But it seems like the option of modifying that vision document is not even an option. It looks like we have either accept or not accept. And it seems like accepting is in the best interest of the city. But I think what we need to make sure is that some of those kind of vague points that are kind of potentially helping us, we need to codify them in our acceptance and say, we are accepting the document under those following conditions, and the conditions, we need to write them up here now.
I think so. I fully agree on that one, because this is the point, right? So like how the city, what city council is expecting from the commission. I think this is the first time we are hearing it. And I think you are also taking to other commissions, I believe, right? Before it goes to planning, before it goes to the council. Similar to the city council is going to come up with some resolution with additional points in there. And I think we should provide inputs into that, whether,
That's our role here.
Yes, exactly. That's our responsibility. I would really expect the staff to really come up with the recommendations saying, hey, this is our guiding principle and these are the changes that, maybe you wanted to modify it. Because what my understanding is, it's not my understanding. I couldn't really find a return action from the Santa Clara VPAC. So they had a discussion on this very same points in January, if I'm not mistaken. You can go look at January or February. And they VPAC made a recommendation to their council with modifications to the plan. I do not know what the modifications are. And I couldn't really find it easily from their website. So if the staff can really find out what other cities are also trying to do the modifications, that will be helpful as well. But irrespective of what they are trying to do, we know we have a guiding principle, and we could really come back and say, restate some of our points, so that it gets recorded in the study.
And I will say, in the resolution that we're gonna bring to council, we will be emphasizing the original resolution and making it explicit that any of the projects that the steering committee recommends has to go through the city's approval process. So that will be formalized in the resolution that will go to council next month. So all of those points that you're making right now, we aim to address in that resolution clearly.
Would it be helpful if I don't know if we are supposed to vote here or not, or if we make a vote or not. But if we make a vote here, if we take the time to write a few of those comments that we all discussed here, heard about, to memorialize them right now, so that they're not being lost essentially.
We can do.
That would be my suggestion. So, yes, we recommend adopting it, but with these conditions attached.
Yep. That makes sense.
Okay, so yeah, we can note those.
Yeah.
And then we can either present those to city council as the commission's recommendations, or maybe perhaps we can integrate them into a resolution that we take to city council as well. Well,
And I like the idea of, working with other cities, because this street cuts across, three cities, like 9 mile stretch. We have to have a framework to operate within. Well intended, right? But not compromise, what we value.
so can you tell us exactly how you'd like to word your
So
condition?
maybe to start with, right, so we agree in principle about joint vision across cities. But then we would like to reiterate our city's guiding principles.
I would say, because the recommended action is to say, we recommend city council to accept the Stevens Creek Boulevard Corridor vision study.
That's staff recommendation, we could always.
Yeah, but after that you add, okay, this is what we want.
Yeah,
That's fine.
Do you want me to change anything, like adding? Keep this recommendation, something like that?
You want to say that the commission recommends that the city council accepts the study with these.
With the
conditions?
following modifications and conditions.
Yeah. Following qualifications.
Are they modifications or are they qualifications?
Qualifications and conditions.
You can write it down and then we'll see whether everybody's modifying it or not.
Yeah.
I don't know what.
How would that, just a question, how would that impact, like, if we put modification or qualification, how is that going to impact that the project? Is that, can it have an impact if we say, well, hold on a second, we modify this and that? Like, what could be the
What
impact?
we need to do with the resolution is codify the discussion that we just had here, where we're outlining the plan or the projects that come out of the steering committee, go through the city's process. So you're gonna be well aware of anything that comes out of the steering committee, as well as a reiteration of the points from the original resolution stating what we went over previously.
I think that would be the solution that would.
So we are only making recommendation to the council, so the council still has a overriding authority on what they wanted to state, similar to the previous resolution, right? So.
But I think that the language that you use, I think would, be very.
But it's still very generic. I think we should be specific about, I think some of the things that were said here is that the city is not committed to any of the projects in the plan or in the vision document, whatever. That to me is one of the statements that I heard multiple times here on the stage.
No, that's correct. And language like that, that is that explicitly stated, it will be in the resolution. That's one.
Right.
So we can, so why don't we write these right now?
Why don't we just write it
Then
down?
I'm saying that here, absolutely. Can you,
The city is not committed to any of the proposed projects or in the vision plan.
Not committed to?
To implementation and delivery
It could
of.
come, can you be loud, little bit loud?
The city is not committed to any of the proposed
Proposed?
projects in the vision plan.
The language is very strong here. Can I say instead the city has the right to object or not to commit to any any project proposed in the vision study? Because otherwise it make it sound like we're not committing to anything, and like there might project that we want to commit to. So
I agree with that. I mean, it's just, that statement as it stands right now is way too strong. You should say,
the city can object or keeps the right to refuse the implementation of.
I don't think they're making any specific projects, right? As of now, the study is. It's more of a direction, isn't it?
I mean,
It is, but there are individual projects within the local roadway safety plan that says deliver the projects identified in the plan. So there are individual projects as part of those programs, or those package of projects.
To reserve the right to refuse project that it did not vote at city council.
So I think so city is not committed to the projects in the vision plan, recommended in the vision plan without approval from the council.
That's also not true because some things here are inside like Stevens Creek. Are there elements of Stevens Creek Boulevard like project that are listed here? Because if you say we're not committed to the project in the study and there are things that we committed to, then that's contradictory.
But I think, you know,
the city maintains final decision-making authority on any projects or
Okay.
recommendations.
that's, I like that language.
Yeah, David, yeah, you understand the concern, right? It's basically, you know.
Yeah.
We want to avoid a situation, you know, a year or two or 5 years from now, something gets done there. Saying that, no, 5 years ago, you guys, you know, signed up on. It. And refer to this meeting, saying, you know, yeah, right, because what we saw in the slides is not everything, because there is more that came out of this study session than, you know, what we saw on the slides today.
Yes. Within the visions. Yeah, that makes sense, yes.
I think we should also re-emphasize the no conversion of lanes. I know this is.
Yeah, I think we should.
Codified somewhere.
It's already.
I know, but it's just.
Can you just say the commission reaffirms its commitment to the resolution?
Resolution. Yes,
Yeah.
yes,
Yeah,
yes.
yeah. That's totally fine. Yeah.
Yes, that's fine.
Yep. That's totally fine.
To the
For the resolution.
language of the resolution.
19.
Conditions, right? Did you, what was that called as conditions or?
Both resolution number.
I'm looking it up.
19.
What is it? 089.
Zero.
And since that resolution only covered the lanes, doesn't talk about intersections, I would like some explicit language that says, any intersection changes and modifications have to come to the council approval or something like that, because
That's already included in the first points.
So the one thing what we could say is, I think what the point you were earlier bringing up is, we need, if such major changes, you need to have public outreach within the city of Cupertino.
yes,
Right, the projects that we adopted for implementation needs to have outreach within our jurisdiction.
All projects within Cupertino will follow the city's standard procedures,
Yeah.
processes for.
public outreach, including intersection changes. That's
Right, I'm
important.
gonna keep it general, like
Yeah.
everything, so. All projects.
So, but the reason I'm talking about the intersection, David, is, I don't want that to be treated as, it's a minor thing, sweep under the rug, right?
It's not. I think it's also good practice to specifically mention the intersection part. I agree.
Oh,
Because
in fact,
it's one part that's not explicitly mentioned in the resolution. So therefore, it's another part that has caused some pain in the past. But I think it's probably important, it's good practice.
City standard processes.
And not that I disagree, intersection are all very important, but I just want to understand your thought process.
So city standard processes and plans as well, because we have vision zero plan, we have HSR, the local roadway safety plan. We are going to come up with other additional, plans as well, right? So I think we need to adhere to our processes and plans as well.
so David, that, can we somewhere, insert, modifications to intersections? Because
We do that now.
you do that now,
Deanza, Stevens Creek 2A, I mean, yeah, Solid Deanza, those have all gone through.
I think
you and
the point is it should not become a fact, whatever is kind of referenced in here. It should become ramroded into Cupertino. I think this is kind of the trigger that we would like. Safety bill.
So how about an edit to the first bullet where it's recommendations contained within the vision study, including intersection modifications, rather than having a separate bullet that aims to
Okay.
clarify that. Including intersection modifications.
So or you would say all projects within the city, including intersection modification, will conform to the city standard processes, procedures.
How are you? Yeah.
That, let that stand on its own.
And the city of Cupertino come, including intersection modifications.
Including any intersection modifications, yeah.
I think another point we wanted to make is that Cupertino is significantly ahead of, in terms of implementation of all other constituents, cities, whatever.
Take it right.
That's a good thing to say. We should be proud about it.
How does that relate to the acceptance of the plan?
Showing the other cities that they have, showing the other
That'll be
cities,
a whereas in the resolution that we did. Yeah,
showing the others that they have work to do.
so what if we say, we go back up here, so second item to recognize
Acknowledge and
or to
celebrate.
acknowledge the city's excellence or and if the city council accepts it. We do that.
Excellence,
Excellent, may not be the right word.
Yeah,
here,
but
but,
to me,
yeah. Level of implementation is significantly ahead of
Yes.
other constituents.
Progress.
Progress. Seconded by Commissioner
Implementation progress.
to recognize the cities. To recognize Cupertino's current progress towards improving Stevens Creek Boulevard. And is that okay? Something stronger.
I think they use the phrase complete streets, meaning having like beautiful trees.
Okay, so should the public outreach point should be a separate bullet to capture that any of the projects that are coming in there needs to happen? We will have our own public outreach. It's not that whatever was already a public outreach as part of the study is fine, but individual projects will have its own outreach.
Yep.
Okay, so the other point which we discussed about the transit, maybe you want to call that out as to what's the commission's recommendation in terms of the transit? Or we just agree to whatever was, we just reaffirm whatever was written in the previous resolution.
I wouldn't necessarily recommend anything. We're gonna be doing studies on this for years, so maybe some clear. Because it's cheaper, right? So I would not recommend doing that.
Okay. Yeah, it's all possible with all the AV automated robot taxis made.
You not need streets.
Yeah. Right.
So you want to keep this as modifications or publications? This is okay.
I think that could be included as well as a section as Cupertino agrees with certain modifications, right? So that's fine.
I don't know if modification is the right word, is the with these qualifications.
Qualifications.
Just call it resolves, since this would be part of the resolution.
And one of the other points we said, like for example, the rest of the city, let's say it's just Santa Clara for the time being, they decide that they wanted to remove one of the bus lanes or remove one of the lanes, right? And doesn't mean that after Lawrence Expressway, we have to follow the same thing.
No.
Unless the city council changes the money.
Yeah, I mean, it's whatever the city council decides. If they reject that plan, then it's never gonna happen.
I think having taken the 23 and 523 bus many times, I can see where they may want to have a separated bike lane, a separated bus lane, like down by Santana Row and that big shopping center, because that's where it gets all jammed up.
That's right.
I mean, that wouldn't, I think, I wouldn't.
So the other point is that Cupertino will maintain its character. Right?
Cupertino will what?
Will maintain its character.
That's right.
We already have, very good development in terms of bike lanes, pedestrian lanes and so on. So we will maintain its character in spite of what the recommendations are coming from as part of this vision, right?
Yes, of course.
Okay,
Okay.
up for voting.
I would say like in the standard processes that maybe I would also like to add processes, plans and procedures. Because we have multiple plans in as part of our
Plans and.
Yes. Okay.
Sounds good. Let's get a vote.
Fine, you're all fine with this wording, so. David, do you have someone who will propose this motion?
I don't want a motion.
Okay.
I make the motion to approve the motion that we've been working on for the last 30 minutes.
Any second?
I second it.
Okay, so for the motion on the screen, how do you vote? Chair Ganga,
Yes.
Vice Chair Eshelbeck,
Yes.
Commissioner Marty Potler,
Yes.
Commissioner Marcy, Commissioner Will.
Yes.
Motion passes 5-0. Yeah.
Thank you. The motion passes.
See what's in the list.
Yeah.
So next one is the staff and commissioner activity report.
I just have one item to report. Am I able to share my screen?
You can use the SDN.
Oh. This is just a reminder for the commission. If you recall, we had staff here 4 meetings ago to talk about the Bike to Wherever Day. And just a reminder for everybody, these are the dates when Bike to Wherever Day will be occurring. I know that there was discussion whether to do on a Saturday or a Thursday at the meeting before, and I think the commissioners had agreed on a Thursday as a greatest benefit to the public, but that's up to you. This is just a reminder that this is coming up.
So it's coming up.
On.
I thought we already agreed on Thursday, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, and as I mentioned, I cannot do Thursday, I can do Saturday, but I cannot do Thursday.
In my case, I might do partial timing depending on my morning meetings. But
Okay.
Yeah.
And who is, you were the leading the effort? Okay. So, sign up by April 30th if we haven't done it already. That's the website again on the screen. I think this is again what we agreed. We're going to do the McClellan and Stelling intersection again, 7 to 10, but again, you can work out what's best for you all and the volunteers. The responsibilities, posting a station, encourage people to pledge to ride. Pick up the tote bags on Monday, May 5th between 12 and 3 at the sports basement. Attend an orientation on Zoom on May 8th. Recruit volunteers if necessary to help staff the booth. Table, chairs, canopy. We'll handle that on our end as we've done in years past, so I can arrange to have that available at the site the morning of, once I receive final confirmation of the date and time that you'll be setting up. And then to provide refreshments, and I can reimburse up to $100 for any that you may purchase. So that was just the reminder, and if you need more information, help, just reach out to me or to Birgit, and we'll be happy to.
So there's also
The slides.
Hmm?
Slides.
Yeah, certainly I can send those to you. Yeah.
there was a request, David, from you that you wanted to share the tables for taking feedback.
Oh, yes, for the active transportation
Is
plan.
it still on the table? or-
If that's okay.
Maybe it's okay for making sure that the commissioners are all in.
The discussion was,
Yeah.
we could use that opportunity to do some outreach for our active transportation plan. So we could have Alta share the space with you all at the Energizer station, just to talk to people that come by.
My only request to that one is like, because this one, partly I think it's also sponsored by the Silicon Valley Bicycle Coalition.
Mhm.
So I was saying that that's a city activity, whatever we are soliciting, feedback is a city sponsored or it's a city activity and you want to make sure that the table is separate and
Sure.
that's independent of.
That we're not under the umbrella of
We
the.
are not,
By coalition.
exactly, that's what I want to make sure.
Is there still a May 5 and 6 event as part of the ATP? Is that still on?
Which event?
The May 5 and May 6 were supposed to be a virtual, because I've not seen.
I think it's the 5th and the 7th, but yeah, we are still planning on having the in-person and the virtual outreach meetings.
Okay, I had it down for 5 and 6, but that's a detail. I haven't seen any official communication from the city or from anybody else at that matter, so I don't know when we are announcing that.
We usually do it like 2, maybe 3 weeks. We don't want to do it too far in advance because then people forget.
Right. But it's
So
not
it'll
bad.
be coming up soon.
Okay,
Okay, that's all I had, Chair.
I did attend the Safe Routes to School meeting this past week. Nothing really new for the commission. I mean, it was essentially a recap from our meeting from our March bike ped meeting in terms of the active transportation plan. So really nothing to report. And for the future, we may want to rethink our kind of the way how we work with the Safe Routes to School, because it's been that way for all the meetings I've been attending. Is essentially a recap from the previous feedback meeting. So maybe the way to rethink that would be, instead of us every month participating and hearing the same again, maybe we invite the Safe Routes to School rep if there is anything specifically, which is the exception, maybe 1 or twice a year, having them come to the commission rather than us being there every month.
Yeah, I mean, we can certainly consider doing that, and you're still welcome to attend the working group meeting.
Of course,
Well, I mean,
everybody's welcome.
we just like to have someone as part of the discussion, honestly, just to keep open channels, but you know, we can certainly also arrange to have Safe Route staff come here, you know, once or twice a year to provide.
We can calculate this and discuss it in a future meeting, maybe.
Yeah, there's already there's a item, like there's a standing item on the future agenda items list. For safe route to school staff update. It has not happened for the last 2 years. So I think it will be good to have a periodic update from the staff or whoever is licensed to the staff license to the safe route to school.
Yep.
To come here and make a presentation and also if you are expecting any recommendation from the, you know, biggies, right?
Right.
Or any coordination recommendations, whatever is needed, right? So I think that will be more actionable than we go there and attending and coming and giving inputs, right?
The advantage to the working group attendance is that you'll hear everything, and some of the more minor items that wouldn't rise to the level of something that we would report on if we're only seeing you know, twice a year. And sometimes there are discussions that need to happen in a faster time frame, once or twice a year, and it's good to have the commission's input and just awareness of what's going on in that world. But if you're not interested in
It's still, it's
attending, then that's up to you. Yeah.
Because as we think it makes sense, but I wouldn't say we should formalize it so that every month there has to be somebody present there. I think it should be more on a voluntary basis. If I want to attend all of them, that's great, or somebody else doesn't want to attend any of them, that's great as well. It shouldn't be kind of the formalized process like we had it in place in prior years. And I have to say, every meeting that I attended, it's super repetitive. It's like exactly repeating what we discussed the meeting before in the PPAC. So therefore, I see very limited value in attending.
And you're certainly welcome to attend, you know, voluntarily as you wish.
Exactly.
The reason we've done the rotation is just to ensure that we don't have, say, 3 commissioners decide to attend 1 month, and then we've got a potential Brown Act violation. So by ensuring that there's one dedicated commissioner, you know, that we've invited each time, we avoid that potential conflict. I mean, it's probably unlikely that we'll have 3 attend any given meeting, but that's the reason for the rotation.
And just to be clear, I think the Safe Routes to School program is a great program. I'm not criticizing the program whatsoever. I'm just challenging kind of the way how we have been engaging in the past. And maybe there's more time economical ways to engage with them.
So if that's what how the commission likes to go, we can I can nix the ongoing invitations and just keep it open. And if anybody would like to attend, you can register through the link that gets sent out.
Or we can ask for a volunteer on that. I mean, similar to what we are doing during the staff proposal, we can to ensure that there is no act violation. You can ask if there are any volunteers who want to attend.
Sure.
Yeah, I still think
That's
that
supposed to be a mandatory attendance, like basically you can ask for volunteers.
it's still important for us as a commission to be part of these meetings, because that's where you get feedback from the community, and we're sort of the conduit to bring things up to city council that pertains to walking and biking, which is exactly the mandate of Safe Routes to School. So if we're not in these meetings, I think we lose an opportunity to hear from the community their feedback, their concerns. And so I would be worried if none of us is able to attend these meetings and none of us is able to hear what people have to say and how we can help them. I think I would be worried about that. So I think it would be important to have at least one commissioner in charge.
And
And it does
that's
have-
perfect. That's perfect. I think everybody can attend as they want. Just from experience, and again, the last meeting last month was or last week actually, was exactly the same pattern. There was nothing really to report. I can report you know the information already because you attended the BPAC meeting.
That's what we sign up for as commissioners. We're here for the community. Sometimes it takes time. Might be repetitive, but that's what we're here for.
That's great. Everybody's their volunteer, whatever they can.
Yeah, that's right. So if you want, we can take a survey on during this agenda item, right? And during the staff report, like who wants to attend next time, and we'll go from there.
And I think it has been in the past a rotational scheme like the last 2 years. I don't know if this
Yeah,
is
we've
the
done,
last 2
we've
years.
done that for a while. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. Any other?
One quick one. So I was at the Earth Day Festival on the booth of Walk by Cupertino, talked to a bunch of people. The overwhelming feedback was that people love the Regna Creek Trail, and I had a lot of questions about why is the next section not open? The section that goes up to the Anza Boulevard, that's after the
It's after
McLellan
Pacifica?
Yes, and people are literally like, a lot of them ask, why is this section at all? I know it
Well,
leads to a parking lot on the other side. That's what I've told them. But people were very curious and interested, and they love the trail. So just wanted to bring that feedback.
yeah, I mean, the two answers are it ends in the parking lot, and two, it wasn't part of a recommendation in the bike plan. So,
But there is something we can do.
I mean, with the development of the ATP, you can certainly recommend it. I don't know if it's feasible, but it can be recommended. Okay.
Okay, thank you. That's not part of the agenda today.
It's Commissioner report.
All right. Then next one is the future agenda item. Hey, do you want to bring up the list? So, David, I thought that you wanted to bring up an item,
Yeah,
for discussion.
I'm drawing a blank on. What was the item I was gonna bring up there? The bike rack item. So the rotary bike rack installations. So a couple of meetings ago, brought the item and the commission collectively had some concerns and some thoughts that they wanted to be reviewed and addressed. That's been done. And so we'd like to be able to move forward with the installation of those racks. And so what I can do is bring back an informational item, and it's probably the next meeting I think would be good, because we have to make progress on this to inform the commission about how the concerns have been addressed and what's been done since we met. So, yeah, that's perfect.
And
Yeah.
next one.
Yeah, so we'd like to do that in May.
Why is it an informational item? Because I thought that some of the commissioners last meeting said they would like to visit the places and then we'll make recommendations as well.
Yeah, and I believe we've addressed all of those.
Yes,
Okay,
we met with the Parks and Recs Commission at McLaren Ranch, so we found an agreeable spot.
What's the variable spot?
That's replacing actually the U, very U, is that how you call it?
The inverted U.
Very U, in front of the bar, I think.
Yeah, in front of the, it's the,
It's a communal
garden.
Yeah.
All right. Any other item that you want to bring up? I would like to see what, I know what's going on with the Vision Zero next steps, which the staff was supposed to form a task force and.
Can bring that back.
Okay. Can bring that.
Just, the next line, just Vision Zero next steps. And then you wanted, a safe routes to school program.
Yes.
We can put that in. Update. And the, we eliminate this, the third bullet, since we had that discussion today?
Yeah. Okay, so any other suggestion? So if none, then we are at the end of that, all the agenda items.
Stephen Creek Corridor Vision Study, that one also I can delete, no?
Yeah, I could.
Oh, yeah, you can
You
do
can
it.
remove that as well.
Yeah, the first bullet is,
Yeah, the second one is also repetitive.
well, we'll be coming back with the ATP again.
Oh, all right, because there was another item which says Cupertino active transportation project.
Oh, yeah, you're right.
Oh, yeah,
You
right.
can remove the bicycle facilities in progress because that's the same one as.
Yes.
Here's the second
But
bullet.
the second one is the repetition.
Wow, a lot of progress.
All right, we're making progress.
Possibly.
Yeah, good job for Sean. Okay.
All right. So, okay, with that, the time now is 9:42. And meeting is adjourned.
Thank you.
Thank you.